Welcome back to Ray's Talk Show. This is your host, Ray Collazo. Thank you so much for joining us. The Ray's Talk Show, we talk about what you're talking about with the people you want to hear from. Thank you again so much. You can support Ray's Talk Show by subscribing and downloading and reviewing Ray's Talk Show, the podcast version of the show on iTunes or anywhere, Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere you can download or subscribe to a podcast. Or, of course, just check out our website, rayspodcast.com. That's RAYS podcast.com, or you can email me at podcastrays@gmail.com, podcastrays@gmail.com, and we love the interaction with our audience, our Rays of Light. Again, thank you so much for joining us. If you're newer to the Rays Talk Show experience, this is your host, Ray Collazo, and we like to bring on people that have something to say about how we can all just be our 100% in our lives, whether that's in entrepreneurship, building our careers, personal development. But over the last few months, we've really had to pay a much closer focus, a lot of our conversations on la política for obvious reasons. And, of course, as we're getting ready to be thankful here during the Thanksgiving holiday, which many of you are listening this during Thanksgiving. And, again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the Ray's Talk Show community. We have to stay vigilant and stay woke, if you will, about the incoming presidential administration and already what's impacted us, literally and figuratively. The potential of this incoming presidency and how we can truly stand up for ourselves, because no one's going to do it for us. That's very clear from the outcome of this election. There's lots of people in this country that our personal safety, my friends, is not a priority. So we have to stand up and do this for ourselves. And how are we going to do that is to build on the positive energy and unifying force of each other. And that, as much as anything, I am grateful for during this Thanksgiving holiday. Again, this is Ray's Talk Show. For those who are not watching the live portion of the show, we're actually recording my segment on Facebook Live, and you're going to hear later in the show, as it relates to part 2 of What Do We Do Now, some great voices and friends to the show, Venessa, Rivera, Carlos, Charlie Ramos, who chime in on the Ray's Talk Show voicemail, which you can leave your messages about what we need to do now as a community or anything else that's on your mind. Just go to rayspodcast.com and hit the What Do We Do Now link, and you can leave a 3-minute message on the Ray's Talk Show voice line, and you'll very likely get on the show. So if you want to have something to say but have not been are not a formal guest of the show, we still want audience participation. So just go to rayspodcast.com and leave your message on the Ray's Talk Show hotline, and you'll hear some of that commentary on this episode of the podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk the Hamilton woke moment that took place over the weekend, the most dangerous thing that Donald Trump said, and what do we do now? So enjoy this episode of Ray's Talk Show, and again, happy Lechon Day. Welcome back to Ray's Talk Show. This is your host, Ray Collazo. Thank you again for joining us, and for those watching on Facebook Live, again, thank you so much for being a part of this episode of Ray's Talk Show. Happy Thanksgiving. Turkey Day, Lechon Day. Have wonderful sides and plenty of coquito handy before you get out there and try to brave hopefully you'll enjoy your holiday weekend. Thank you again for joining me, my night owls here, watching here on the Facebook Live version. And if you're listening to this at the podcast, thank you again for joining us. I'm sure people heard and saw what took place at a weekend viewing of Hamilton, the smash, well, to call it just a smash Broadway hit is almost an understatement, a societal changing moment, a piece of art, no doubt about it. And, of course, Vice President-elect Mike Pence went to the show, got a smattering of boos and applause. And at the end of the show, the cast members had something today, and I think a very real, honest, and respectful statement to him, calling on tolerance and a call for the administration to acknowledge the little over half the country that voted against this incoming administration, and a large segment of that population is frankly terrified of the potential effects to our civil rights and civil liberties. It's interesting how the media, even on both sides of the aisle, sort of took a critical eye. There was even a debate about whether that was appropriate. And so what was interesting about that to me was, first of all, the media really sort of pitted it versus sort of the cast of Hamilton, or Hamilton, the franchise, and its reaction or its engagement with with Mike Pence, which was interesting because the boos and the sort of the really came from the audience. Didn't really come from the cast. And so in the corporate media's perspective, sort of the man versus, these minority artists that were on stage really wasn't accurate. The people that gave Mike Pence that feedback, and I wasn't there, but you can imagine the demographics of a Friday night or an evening Broadway show, very elite and probably overwhelmingly white, the audience. And probably that was the demographic that essentially booed him, although there was a mix of applause as well. So what was in trying to create this us versus them narrative, they failed to really focus on the fact that the cast, in fact, discouraged booing and discouraged that kind of negative feedback and really wanted everyone to focus on love, unity, and really wanted an opportunity to share with what many of us are feeling, is that we're scared. And we want this administration to hear us because we're scared. And we should be rightfully so scared, considering the initial actions of this president-elect. So, even from the left, if people saw Morning Joe the last few days, I think it's been pretty disgusting. This call by Joe Scarborough and Nikki Brzezinski, Mika Brzezinski, that, it was tacky or it is off-putting. Well, guess what? Our community has, at this point, virtually no access, whether it's through the corporate media, whether it's through, I don't think the president-elect has met with a Latino. One single member of our community, which is almost 20% of the United States. So when you're in a position, and what people of color have met with him, Kevin Johnson, former NBA players, whose wife they're trying to co-opt to be the Secretary of Education, and she's turned down that opportunity, by the way, earlier today. And I know at the end of the day, it is a distraction. We have to move forward. But I think the bottom line is, I think we have to be clear that for those being critical at all of the audience, again, the cast didn't boo. And second of all, how else are we supposed to communicate with this administration? We don't run CNN. We don't run the New York Times. He basically doesn't meet with anybody. So how are we supposed, when we protest peacefully, we get critiqued. So how are we supposed to communicate? So kudos to the Hamilton team. And I would imagine Lin-Manuel Sr. and Jr. had something to do with that note. And I think we all had a collective bravo over the fact that they said what many of us, tens of millions of us, are feeling. For people that, it's interesting how our reactions to this emergency are critiqued as critically as the emergency. It's very clear that there's a large chunk of our population that our personal safety is not a priority. And unfortunately, I think many of them are going to realize that this administration's, their lives are not much of a priority either. We're all in the same boat here. And we're going to have to find ways to balance this rightful indignation with trying to be unifiers again. So I want people to understand that that's the balancia, which is not going to be easy. And we have to continue to discuss. For the podcast listeners, let's listen to what one of our great leaders, Venessa Rivera, from currently now in Florida, to what she believes what we can do now.
It's important for us to start taking action. We need to look at any type of racial, ethnic intimidation, anything that's coming on board, we need to start challenging. So signing petitions. There was recently the mayor that resigned because of the pressure to her appealing to this comment of the first lady being an ape in heels. We have to look at this new guy who's in the transition committee for immigration who created the Alabama, Hazleton, the Pennsylvania laws, as well as Arizona, asking them to put people who are not racist, who are, don't have these agendas of hate, emailing the Speaker of the House, various people. I really think that we have to put the pressure all across the board, looking at folks like Sean King, who's doing a national boycott of places like Home Depot, looking at boycotting PayPal. These are people who supported this. So I think there's a lot of action that can be done and putting the pressure on big time. Start boycotting, start petitioning. We have to move into action.
Thank you, Venessa. And Jose Sanchez, I'm going to answer that in a second. Will any Latinos be appointed to the cabinet? my young boy Julian Carrasquillo, my cousin Armando Gonzalez, many good friends here on the line here. Facebook Live. This is our live recording of an episode of Ray's Talk Show. And again, if you're not familiar with the podcast, help a brother out. Download the show, subscribe to it on iTunes. If you have a Galaxy or one of those Androids, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud or Spotify. Spotify is a great place to find us, and leave Stitcher, any of those podcast aggregators, tune in. And anywhere you can leave me a review is very appreciated. It would very help us much in the rankings. And I'll get to your question, Jose, about whether there have been any Latinos in the cabinet. That's a real good question. So in terms of, I think, this is, it's been very interesting because after the initial shock and then the subsequent peaceful protests, overwhelmingly peaceful, there was a couple of minor incidents, mostly in Portland, by the way. There was a lot of discussion about, just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. And so as if we weren't supposed to believe what the person said, the president-elect said he was going to do for the last year and a half. And then when people peacefully protested, there was a lot of thumbing of the nose, right? Oh, these people didn't vote, or they voted a third party, or when we really don't even know. And, people need to given the space to react however they want to react, as long as it's in the bounds of the law. And so now we see action, specifically some of the appointments that he announced. He hasn't announced many yet, so we don't have the full laundry list. But the initial first picks, when you're picking, like to play pickup basketball, your first picks are the ones that are going to be closest to you and are going to have probably the most influence on you, are for the most part horrifying. Steve Bannon, senior strategist. I mean, he leads the leading outlet for white nationalism and fascism in this country, Breitbart News, and in particular, and Jeff Sessions. Those two are the people we want to focus on. The Attorney General is one of the most powerful people in the administration. And it's the Department of Justice. Anywhere from our voting rights, civil rights, a role in the immigration piece, even though not as influential in immigration policy as previously, before the Department of Homeland Security was created in the Bush administration, and our lawyer, Jose Sanchez and Juan de la Torre are the experts in that field, and we'll have them on future episodes to discuss those dynamics. Voting rights, justice reform, police enforcement issues, truly a critical position. And the person that he nominates, Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, besides being arguably the most conservative member of the Senate, 30 years ago was deemed inappropriate by a Republican-controlled Senate to be a federal judge because of his rhetoric, language, and history dealing, which frankly called to question whether he was a racist or not. Very discriminatory. How he spoke to African-American lawyers, a frivolous voter fraud case put up against an African-American family to just registering neighbors and friends to vote, and the list goes on and on. And so we're reminded to the calls around Jeff Sessions, well, that happened 30 years ago. First of all, that happened when he was 12. He was well in his professional career when those issues took place. And, last time I checked, when I do things when I'm 34 years old, I get held accountable for them for quite some time. And, I mean, I get a traffic ticket, and I still, my car insurance goes up $20 a month for the rest of my life. But secondly, just amongst the many things that we can point to, 2006, 10 years ago, he said in the halls of Congress, in the Congressional Record, not after two martinis, not in a secretly recorded conversation, in the halls of Congress and during, on the Congressional Record, speaking about immigration issues, Jeff Sessions said, "I don't see what Dominican immigrants can bring any value to this country." And so I think, by the way, not only attacking a Latino immigrant group, but an Afro-Latino Caribbean group, Afro-Caribbean immigrant group, not by accident. And I just wonder as I sit there, how much more Juno Diaz, David Ortiz, Zoe Zaldana, a Julissa Reynoso, a Julio Alvarez, how much more they've contributed to our country in a positive way than this man. And so for those that say, well, just wait and see. Just wait and see. We've seen enough. And so we need to understand that for those of us, and I'm included, that our inclination is to be polite and be respectful and be cautious and be balanced and be nice and be fair. I'm not saying don't be that way, because that's how we're supposed to be. What I'm saying is that we have to understand that the forces that we're battling against are not playing by the rules. They're not even playing by the rules of normal right-wing orthodoxy. These aren't even the rules that Karl Rove or even, God, some of the most evil actors like Dick Cheney have played in the past. This is a whole other ball game. Someone that's threatening the future of our freedom of press in this country. So we can't. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, Ralphie. So we have to understand that how we play in our normal space with advocacy and speaking up for ourselves just has to change, because we're not dealing with someone that's playing by the rules. And so I'm saying don't play by the rules. I'm saying our perspectiva on how we approach this has to be much different, and we all have to do this together. The same. Oftentimes one of my compadres, Elbo Garcia, stated very appropriately the other day to me that we've outsourced and let those of us, particularly in the Latino community, who have the least, namely those immigrant leadership, many of which are dreamers, many of which are undocumented, to sort of take the lead. We've had them take the lead on activism in our community. They've been on the front lines. They put themselves on the front lines, and they have the most to lose. They could literally be the ones not here in the near future. And so we need to stop doing that. Those of us that have a little more established in this country have a little more of a voice, a platform, because of our social status or just, our personal power, our personal strength. We need to step it up. And what's been heartening about this process in the midst of this darkness is that many of you, my friends, our families, this has been, unfortunately, a tremendous smack in the face. And I know many of you, especially with the Obama legacy, wow, and my kids were the same. Wow, our kids were born in this era. And what a wonderful thing to be able to say that our kids were born in this era and they can grow up in this world where someone like President Obama and Michelle Obama, that beautiful family being in the White House, is normal and attainable. And now we've reverted back, we've gone back not 10 years, not 20 years, 50, 55, 60. Speaking about the concept of what do we do now? My homie, Carlos Charlie Ramos, a fantastic leader in his own right and the labor and Latino activism movements. His thoughts.
Hey, Ray, this is Charlie. I think we have a lot of work ahead of us. I think Trump's recent appointments is just an indicator of the policies and the direction of this country for the next 4 years for people of color and white working class workers. I think now more than ever, we need to stick together and get back to basics, grassroots organizing, and really just talking about economic issues and really bringing everyone together around a concerted message and a common agenda and ideas. So those are my quick thoughts of what do we do now. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Charlie, for your remarks. And again, thank you again for joining Ray's Talk Show. Really appreciate the people watching me on Facebook Live, Luis, Deborah, Michelle, Enrique, and all of you. Really appreciate that. And so here we are, right? Again, Thanksgiving. And look, the first thing I would say is take this time. We can forget about this clown for 5 days. Enjoy the time. Focus on the overwhelming amount of people in our world from all political persuasions that are wonderful, positive, and really just want a little better for themselves and a little bit more for their kids. And we have to understand that as hard as it is, that even for the vast majority of people who voted for this man, it came out of insecurity, not the evils, the some of the harsher language that we could certainly attach to this incoming president and his crew. And I know it's difficult, and I don't think we have language for this. And that's something that we're going to have to continue to work on, because if we continue to, it's one thing to attack the administration and Trump and his nuts, but, you know, our fellow brothers and sisters, if we don't figure out a way to communicate with them, these divisions are going to harden. And as difficult as it is that we have to kind of be the bigger person again, on some level, we're going to have to do that because, you know, being the leader is lonely, and being the leader is things that are unpopular and unpleasant, and things that don't feel like fair oftentimes. But the reality is that's why we're the leaders. You know, everyone thought John the Baptist was an idiot, you know, so it takes sometimes people a little longer to see it. So we have to keep that in mind as part of this. So take care of yourselves, enjoy yourselves, you know, forget about this guy for 5 days. I give you permission from Wednesday on. Focus on your family, focus on your spiritual life, get some exercise, get this negativity out of your head. Then when you get back, Monday, Tuesday, we need to get on it. So to the question of, but to what we can do now, and I appreciate people's comments on this because people have a lot of great commentary about it. I think the simplest thing we can do on the political side is, so when we're looking at how we can stop, that's right. Immigrants don't go dead days off, bro. That's the way it goes. Luis knows that. But that's why you guys get ahead. So in terms of these characters, so unfortunately, people like Steve Bannon, we're gonna pitch a bitch. We're gonna call for him not to be in this White House. And I think strategically we need to do that because we have to understand. Let's take a step back before we get into the practical steps tactically. I think strategically, my thought is, let's not overestimate Trump in that we shouldn't underestimate how harmful he could be, but I don't think we should overestimate how resolute he is. Because if you really look at it, he's a classic bully. He barks a lot, says a lot of terrible things, pushes people around, people he can manipulate, people that are not as powerful, women, undocumented, people that are invisible. He can push around a lot. And but when he's confronted, he usually backs down. Think about his trip to Mexico. Think about how he's already walking back before he even gets to the White House. He's already walking back some of his policy, the tenets of his campaign. So think about how many people on his staff got fired. We had 3 or 4 campaign managers because of political pressure, because of politics, because of the winds of change. So Juan De La Torre says he's not worried about Trump. He's worried about Congress following along. Well, that is very true. So I would just say that in the same way that he hired Steve Bannon, there may be a trigger, whether it's our political pressure, whether it's, some combination of us standing up to him and him being stood up to, where on a whim we may be surprised. I think we will find how much our activism will be impactful with this character, because he hasn't shown really the reality to stand up to anybody. And he's not going to stand up to anybody. You know how much money he owes the Chinese? Hundreds of millions of dollars. You really think he's going to trade war with people he owes? You owe somebody a couple $100. You ain't getting a war with them, a fight with them, on Facebook, much less you owe $600-700 million to somebody. You're not getting into an international trade war with them. So a lot of those fights are not going to happen. So let's fight him. Let's stand up to the bully, and let's see how much bite he's really got with all that bark. So on the tactical end, while we need to push against the Steve Bannon appointment, we have to understand that his job at the White House essentially does not have to be confirmed by the Senate, unlike the potential incoming or the Attorney General nominee who will be running the Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions. So unfortunately, that is an uphill climb because the Senate will be majority Republican, and we already have one shameful, disgraceful Democratic senator, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who's already said he would publicly support Jeff Sessions' nomination. So essentially, this fight is in the Senate. So I would suggest for people, that, really want to focus on sort of one thing at a time, to really focus your energies primarily, if you have only the bandwidth for one fight, to focus on the Jeff Sessions nomination. And so there's lots of things we can do, right? There's petitions online. There's, calls to members of Congress, which we'll talk about in a second, in terms of who to call and why it's important. There's visits to members of Congress, other actions, social media. There's other things. There's a lot of things we could be doing. I would suggest that you focus your attention on the issue around the Jeff Sessions nomination, which we absolutely cannot have this man be Attorney General. I mean, minority rights. You think any cops are going to be held accountable during that administration? I mean, we need to focus on making sure this man doesn't get in. And despite the seeming numeric challenge of having to get a handful of Republican senators, ultimately who are his coworkers. I mean, this guy works there, and there's only 100 of them. They're all kind of chummy. It's a cozy club. To go against them, we've overcome bigger odds. Look at the Supreme Court nomination of Bork and Robert Bork and others. I mean, look, this guy didn't get through a federal judgeship in a Republican Senate 30 years ago. So, and so I would suggest. So, in terms of what you can do, the best thing you can do with your limited time is to reach out, focus on your senators and senators in general. So, because members of Congress, your Congress people don't have any technical say in this matter. So in terms of who to reach out to, I would suggest the easiest way to do this in thinking about who do you reach out to. If you have any Republican senators in your state, call them. If you have two, call both of them. It doesn't hurt to call your Democratic ones either, by the way. But in particular, if you only have limited time, focus on any Republican senators that are in your state. The other thing is, make sure when you call, and we suggest you call one of their district offices. So if they have a district office in your city, in your region, or, kind of the biggest office you think they have in the state, call the people there. D.C., you can get lost in their voicemail system, and it's not as impactful. Call their district office, because the district offices normally don't get that kind of volume, and it'll just be more impactful because they'll be reporting into D.C. about all these people calling, because it'll seem like, because very few people do this, 20, 30 calls will seem like a lot to them and be disruptive because those regional offices don't have the same capacity. So if you live in like New York, and I know those questions come up, or you live in New York or New Jersey, or Illinois, where you have, pretty progressive Democratic senators, my humble suggestion, it's not any formal organization suggestion, is that you call Senator Rubio. And I would call his Miami district office. And I'll put this in the show notes. 305 area code, 418-8553, 305-418-8553, 305-418-8553. That's his Miami office. I would imagine that's the office that he would probably get the most feedback from. I would imagine he probably listens to the Miami office, people that run that. They're probably very loyal to him. Call his office, and let him know that it is unacceptable for a Latino member of the Senate, regardless of party, to endorse someone that, amongst other things, a long litany of history, said 10 years ago. This wasn't 50 years ago. This wasn't when he was 12 years old. This was 10 years ago when he was a grown man, said that he did not see what contributions Dominican immigrants would bring to our country. That statement alone disqualifies that man to be the leader of our Department of Justice. That's a very simple message. And you can flavor it, color it however you want. And it goes beyond partisanship. This man wasn't qualified to be a federal judge 30 years ago. Nothing has changed fundamentally in this man's history that would make him eligible to be the number one law enforcement official in this country. Keep it simple. You got a Republican senator in your state, call that person's district office. If you don't, call Senator Rubio and let him have it. Country. And again, you're listening to Ray's Talk Show. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you guys chiming in and your care. We have about a dozen people watching now, and about 30, 40 people have watched the Facebook Live throughout the evening. Thank you so much for my night owl, Cindy Rangel, and many of our friends. That's right. Juan Delatorre comments, one of our legal experts. DOJ runs the Executive Office of Immigration Review. So, no, this man's no good. He's very dangerous. And if we just get one thing done, and again, I say, let's stand up to the bully, because bullies are bullies. Mike Tyson got knocked out first time someone stood up to him. It's the way it goes. So let's stand up to him. I think we're going to be able to get a lot more done than we would anticipate. We're going to get over this guy, no doubt about it. We're going to do it together. I think it's going to be a great blessing. And, we got smacked in the face, particularly us who have let our immigrant community and the people that have the least lead us in many ways in activism. We need to, as Connie Leon says, we need to stand together, no doubt about it. Final comments. I think that I really think that it is a call to action. And again, I'll go back to my friends that this was just such a fundamental shift. And I know we're all thinking, wow, how do I explain this to my children? So many of us went through that emotion over the last few weeks. We've been telling our children, what do we tell our kids? Don't be a bully. Treat people with respect. Respect democracy. Respect this country. Respect diversity. Work hard. Be prepared. And then we elect someone that counters every value that we teach our children and that we've expected out of the democratic process. And so, that's a difficult conversation, a difficult reality as parents that so many of us are dealing with. And so I've been thinking a lot about this because, we are, we're in the middle of it. And I would just say that this is not only where our kids need us the most, because we need to protect them from this administration, this risk now, but we're going to have to show them what true leadership's all about. And we all already do it. And this is not to be critical of our professionals and people doing such amazing things as parents and career professionals and in your own right. But this is I think particularly for the Latino community, this is indeed our civil rights moment. I mean, we've had many moments, but this is our civil rights moment because we're definitely one of the bullseyes here. And one of the things that we really haven't done is flexed our full muscles. And that's not to be critical. It's just the reality of it. Sometimes it just takes moments like this. But I think we see the power of what all of us can do. The potential is pretty incredible. And just the energy I've seen from the last few weeks about after we got over the shock of it, the fire in all of our so many people's bellies to do something about this and be part of the change. We have to embrace that power. And that's why so much of our discussions on Ray's Talk Show relate to personal development and tapping into our personal power, because at the end of the day, we know what we should be doing. The fight oftentimes is in here. And I'm pointing for the podcast audience to my cerebro here, because we're not listening to our heart. We're not listening to our message, but we know what our heart's telling us. We just have to have the courage, confidence, and to a lesser degree, maybe develop a few skill sets to truly share what's on our heart. Saturdays, we got to get fired up and ready to go. My man, Luis. I guess the last thing I'll say is I really think from a Latino sort of organizing perspective, thank you, Emily, is I think on this one, I think we have to use this incredible insult to the Dominican community as an opportunity to really mobilize and frame this campaign, because I really think there's an opportunity here I really think it's an opportunity for us to tell this story. I mean, imagine that, that our Dominican leadership really is the face of this opposition and really we can help them juxtapose the ridiculousness of this man's thinking to say something like that when, again, millions of Dominican Americans contribute an immense amount to our country in every way. So I think this is an opportunity that, this gives us a brand, a marketing angle here to capture the attention of, to capture the essence of this discussion. So a call out to our Dominicanos. Y'all should take the lead, rightfully so, on this one, and we should follow in kind. So again, thank you so much. We, for those again who are watching me on Facebook Live, I super appreciate it. You can hear some of the commentary from people that are calling into our hotline, which again, if you just go to racepodcast.com, go with that Gabrielina. I was just speaking of Dominicanas, great Dominican leader, our dear friend Gabby. You can, if you log into racepodcast.com, podcast.com. You can leave a voicemail message and let us know what you think we should be doing. Just your emotions, your commentary, your strategic thinking. Let us know what you think. And you can always email me at podcastraise@gmail.com. That's podcastraise@gmail.com. If you want to help develop future episodes of the show, you want to be on the show, you got something to say, just hit me up. Thank you all so much for my Facebook Live audience. Let's do this. Fired up and ready to go. Peace. Thanks for listening to Ray's Talk Show. For more insights from your virtual Big Brother, Ray Collazo, and the Big Brother Ray community, subscribe to Ray's Talk Show at BigBrotherRay.com or on iTunes. To my rays of light, keep shining.